Cool. So, well, thank you everyone for having me this morning. I want to say I really appreciate, I know it cannot be the easiest to get up a little early. So I thank you all for being here. Today, we are going to talk about growth, which is the global concept for today. I think I tweaked it a little bit to make it a little bit more relevant to me, which was growing pains. But before we get too far into it, I wanted to just, say a little bit more about who I am. I'm many things. I am an artist, a student, a husband, a father, a designer. I'm that annoying kid that always asks why all the time. I'm a movie snob, many different things, but I'm also a person who has and will continue to make a lot of mistakes. So before we dive too deep into this, I wanted to start with something that we'll probably have a lot through the course of this conversation, which is a quick tangent. And does anybody, we're into a little audience engagement, does anybody know what that building is? I didn't think so. Oh, you do?
Pen.
It's what?
Isn't that the library pen?
No. Any of this, does that help? All right, I only brought one. I thought this would be a hand-raising activity, so I'll let somebody come get it later. Yes, so that is Gettysburg, and more accurately, Gladfelter Hall at Gettysburg College. So I want everyone to just kind of walk with me here, and I am a 22-year-old at Gettysburg College, and I'm almost done my major, which was Organization and Management Studies. And I'm sitting in Gladfelter Hall, the building we showed earlier. It's a classroom, looks very similar to most classrooms that you all probably, attended. And my teacher or professor is just kind of running through like what'd you think of the major? And so I thought about it. She looked at me and she said, Rahmi, what did you think about the Organization and Management Studies major? And I said, I feel pretty well equipped to manage a company, but I'm 22. I don't have any hard skills, no work experience. I think I might have a hard time convincing someone to make me their manager. And so then, bless her heart, she thought about this for a second, and she said probably the most terrifying thing that you could tell a young 22-year-old about to join the workforce. She said, Rahmi, I never thought about that. And so that brings us to our first point of this conversation, which is an uh-oh moment. And so I panicked a little bit and was like, what do I do? So then this kind of, to put that to the side, I struggled with how I should format this conversation. I didn't want to just go like pure chronological order, like, here's Rahmi as a kid and here's, him now. But I thought that I would structure it in my actionable takeaways and then kind of give a backing in the story that brought me to that conclusion. So we're gonna start with learning number one, which is the task everyone hates is usually the one worth mastering. And we'll say that again, the task everyone hates is usually the one worth mastering. So I want everybody to walk with me here. I have now recently graduated and I'm looking for a job. I, once again, as we summarized earlier, I don't have a lot of skills. I don't have a lot of experience, but what I do have is a love for graphic t-shirts. My parents used to always make fun of me as a kid, and I really loved brands. And so I had, taken a stab at my own. I ran a brand called Only Positives Co. And the idea was reimagining urban spaces and combating negative urban stereotypes. And it pains me to show some of this work, but I was really excited about it at this point. So we'll quickly flip through some of the brand stuff. God, look at facial hair did big things for me. And so we'll go through, yay, brand stuff. Cool. So to bring us back in here, 22, no job, got this brand, but I don't have any money, and so I did what every normal 22-year-old does. I looked for some jobs, and I applied for 435 jobs. That's an exact number. 435 jobs. and it wasn't looking great for Rahmi. And so I was talking to one of my friends who had recently graduated a couple years prior, and he was saying that he worked at Comcast. And so, this wasn't the big creative job that I had envisioned for me, but it was in the business sales department. I was like, I'd still be working with entrepreneurs. Like, I could make this, work for my mental. I was like, they just opened the big technology center downtown. I could get a house or an apartment like downtown somewhere, and I could walk to work. I can make this work. But, so I did accept the job, and it looked a little bit different than I imagined. We were closer to here. So I worked in Horsham, Pennsylvania, in the small business sales department, which looked a lot more like a call center, and it was very abundantly clear that this was not the place for me. I would spend most of my days with my laptop on top of my work computer trying to get like my brand stuff done. I loved everyone I worked with, but it was very apparent that Rahmi didn't want to be here. And so every time like the vice president of sales would come down or something, our manager would look at me and she would say, "Rahmi, you don't say 2 words while he's here." And so I continued this path, but the one thing that I learned from my experience at Comcast that I really wish I had spent the time to master was what they called the Comcast Business Conversational Sales Flow. I should throw a trademark up there, I don't know. But the Comcast Business Conversational Sales Flow, which I will very quickly run through with you right now. I believe that they had just paid McKinsey like $2 million or something to develop this. And it starts with greeting and introduction, framing the conversation, discovery and needs assessment, solution presentation, handling objections and negotiation, closing the deal and next steps, and then finally post-sales engagement. And I couldn't have cared less about this in the moment. But it's one thing that, as we go through some of this creative roadmap that I've gone through so far, the common denominator has always been sell, sell, sell. And so I really think that had I paid more attention to something as, a young creative that we always hate, which is sales, and, we're always above sales, I really think that every one of my creative pursuits would have been a more open door. So that kind of moves us to learning number 2, which is there's just as much value in learning what not to do. And so I'll say that again, there's just as much value in learning what not to do. And so we're gonna start this next story at a similar place, and I promise not all of these will start at Gettysburg College. But I did play basketball at Gettysburg, and I did have a coach who I wasn't a big fan of. And it was not an opinion that was only my own. But I used to go to practice and go to games every day, and I would really start taking a tally of, when I coach one day, here's things that I'm gonna make sure that I don't do, because I didn't show up ready to win when my coach did these things. And so then later, I did go on to go back to my high school and coach our team, and I felt like I started, as being a fresh coach in a much better place because I had already paid attention and had a running list of previously made mistakes, but not by me, but by my former coach, and so I knew exactly what not to do, and that put me in a really good place. So kind of relating that back to my professional career, I did eventually end up leaving, and I did not stay at Comcast. I think I was there for like 6 months. And I went on and I freelanced doing some graphic design work, doing some digital design work. But I did end up getting picked up by an agency. And I intentionally removed the name of the agency, but if you want to be messy, it is on LinkedIn. So I was working this agency, and after some time, started to develop, I guess, some feelings that I didn't really like how the agency was being ran. I, disagreed with some different management things, and it was a similar situation where I realized, there's a lot of things that are being done here that I don't fully agree with, and so I actually this time around kept a running notes tab in my phone of what not to do when running an agency. So I did go on to launch my own studio, which is Linden Ave Studio, and I felt like I had a really good starting place being a new studio owner because I had a large tally and been very aware of the mistakes not to make. So then just kind of, I felt obligated to throw in some work here, and then also some clients. I'm proud of our clients we've been able to work with. So this brings us to learning number 3. And I want to take a step back here and walk us through this transformation period between when I left my old agency and then when I started Linden Ave Studio. And so learning number 3, the fastest way to earn a seat at the table is to host the meal. And I'll say it again, the fastest way to earn a seat at the table is to host the meal. And so this story actually starts in Los Angeles. Oh, is it gonna play? Cool. And that's actually a video from my actual road trip out west. But yeah, so I had recently, well, I guess my now wife, girlfriend at the time, had relocated to Los Angeles. And so I had made the decision that I was gonna go too. And so I moved to Los Angeles, and I think it was actually my birthday. I had been there for 2 days, and I get a call from my old manager saying, you know, Rahmi, I know we talked about this. I don't think this Los Angeles thing is gonna work. I'm gonna have to let you go. So I've been in Los Angeles for 48 hours. I think I'm turning 25 or something, and I'm out of a job. Just moved in with my girlfriend. And so I did what every normal person would do. I started looking for jobs. And this was my first uh-oh moment, or a second uh-oh moment, excuse me. What do? Applied to 273 jobs. 273 jobs. And what quickly became apparent to me, I guess not that quickly, I applied to 273 jobs, but that hiring managers didn't see the vision. I think that I had this idea of this larger than life creative that, you know, was maybe more of like the end rope that I'm still pursuing, but I thought I was there now, and they just didn't see the vision that I saw, and so the job market didn't really go my way. But I, was talking to my wife, and she was saying, Rahmi, you really have been saying how you want to start your own thing anyways, and so maybe this is your sign just to skip that step and start, pitching some work. And I very quickly was able to realize that I was much better at pitching work and getting, agency jobs, or I should say client work, than I was at actually applying and getting interviews and, getting a job. So I did that in the Los Angeles market for, I guess, about 1.5 years, and was able to, the agency quickly grew. I was very happy with that. And then after a little bit, I don't know if anybody's spent some time in Los Angeles, it can be a little bit of an exhausting place. And so we did decide that we wanted to move back. And so we moved back, which brings us to Philadelphia. My wife, her family's from Jersey. My mom lives in Upper Darby. So this is our kind of area. So when I came back, I thought that once again, I moved to Los Angeles, I started a studio, we're doing really good. I thought that I was gonna be welcomed by my peers and everyone was gonna ask me to come, oh, Rahmi, how was that? What did you think about this? And those conversations didn't really happen. My mom was excited that I was home. My friends were like, hey, good to see you. But I wasn't, leading the conversations that I wanted to lead. And I didn't have this network of peers that I really wanted to have. And so it brought me to launch an event. And so that event was called Process. And it started because I had some questions about running a studio, because I didn't have a ton of experience running a studio. And I had sent some emails to some other studio owners that I really admired, and none of them had really answered. And so I got this idea of, well, if I maybe frame this to them as, well, we're having this discussion panel, and there's be some people who will come see you speak about these things, I could get to ask all my questions, and then I also get to be the one leading these conversations with these people that I really admire. So we did about 30 of these over the course of 2-ish years. We hosted them at the W Hotel, and I really, am proud of that, because it allowed me to then go on to, speak in some larger rooms sometimes. which was part of that goal. So this brings me to our final learning, which is learning number 4, which is there's no selfhood where there is no community. I'll say it again. There is no selfhood where there is no community. So this part of the story starts at P's and Q's. Does anybody know P's and Q's? Cool, we got some P's and Q's people in here. Okay, there we go. So I briefly worked at P's and Q's, and Key, the owner, is a great guy. And one thing that his value proposition as a contribution to, streetwear as a whole, but also, Philadelphia as well, was that he felt that you walk into a lot of different streetwear stores, and the general feeling is like they try to make you, feel like they're cooler than you, and it's like a brand building deal. Like, oh, we're this high caliber streetwear store, we're above you, and Key always took the opposite perspective of that. He was like, you know what? Like, we're all members of the same community. And so what we're really, built on here is that idea of we're all part of this community. And then P's and Q's is the home for this community. And so, he would, if he caught even a glimpse of people feeling like we're acting, a little pretentious or that they were better, he would nip that in the bud very quickly. And so I think that that's something that I really put into a lot of my work from then on. And just this general idea of community. And so when we moved back to Philadelphia, it was time, and I really wanted to open a physical location. And so then, we could have places to host gatherings, allow other people to come and host their events, which I was really excited. That's Sampha. I'm a huge Sampha fan, if there's any Sampha fans. And Wallow one day reached out to have them film their podcast where they hosted Sampha in our studio, which was a very exciting moment for me. But anyways, so next, I have a love for boxing. and so that kind of led me to, from there, join my boxing coach, who ran a nonprofit that is an anti-gun violence program in honor of his late brother. And through that program, I was able to do things like work with Bernard Hopkins, who also served on the board. And I'm not sure if anyone knows who Bernard Hopkins is. Philly legend, top 75, maybe 50 boxer of all time. Probably the second, him and Joe. But anyways, and then also got to do some really exciting and fun design work and lead some different community events. Like, for example, this gallery exhibition where we had different local Philadelphia designers create different boxing-centric pieces of art, and then we auctioned it off to benefit the program. We also did things like hosted boxing exhibitions, where I actually participated in as well. And then my most recent endeavor has brought me to the software world, where from talking to all these different designers, I was able to realize some common problems just from engaging with my community. And there was some real mishaps happening within a standard design process. And so right now we are working on building a tool that helps create this, this world where designers can just design. And then through that, we've been able to do things like Designer's House, which was back in September. We did the first one. We had almost 300 designers come out, and they listened to some designers that I really respect. And then we launched at that same event our first tool, which is called Mood Board Studio. It allows designers to very quickly turn reference images into presentation-ready concepts. And if anybody wants IDbetter.com, Mood Board Studio, you can get free 30 days. Leave that up for a second. And then this isn't my plug. My one plug of the day is, so we were recently, I guess as of this week, nominated for Product of the Year by Technically. And so I would love if everybody would scan that QR code and vote. I'll give you like 5 seconds. Mood Board Studio. Cool. So then most recently, my endeavors in community brought me to this place. Does anyone know this place? It was in the dark night. So this is Tiger's Nest in Bhutan. We're looking at a building that's about 13,000 feet in the air. So I was able to venture to Bhutan this past October with about 15 other designers that I really admired. And we were able to do things like participate in different ceremonies. Like this is at the Dodedra Monastery, where we actually stayed the night at with the Buddhist monks and participated in a purification ceremony. Which, funny tangent, the like Buddhist expert got us all in the room and was like, these people need to get cleansed. And so they ordered a cleansing ceremony for all of us to make sure we got all that bad karma out of the way. But then we've also been able to do things like, on this trip we saw Yo-Yo Ma perform, which was incredible. I met some different people who I hope to have long-standing relationships with. And then also got to spend some time with some designers that I have really admired for a long time. This is the two co-founders of Collins, which is one of my favorite design agencies. And then I'm going to include this photo in every single presentation that I give for the rest of my life. That is the King of Bhutan. That is the king. And so we got to also meet the King of Bhutan and spend some time with him and ask him questions and stuff like that. And this is all just through working with my design community. And so just to kind of close this out here, I wanted to just once again summarize our takeaways. So if you took nothing from this, the task everyone hates is usually the one worth mastering. For me, that was sales. There's just as much value in learning what not to do. I was able to pull that from my experience within basketball, also in launching an agency. The fastest way to earn a seat at the table is to host the meal. Various ways, but I think once again, studio, different events, for me was that example. And then lastly, there is no selfhood where there is no community. So to kind of round this out, I want to say thank you and go Birds.